Hey guys, Poseidon here. This is an alternate history scenario of Songs of War, the recent Minecraft animated fantasy series by Black Plasma Studios. Here I discuss how the series would have gone differently if the events had differed at a certain point. The series, in my opinion, is very cool and interesting, especially for people who like either Minecraft or fantasy, or both, like me. I would recommend stopping this video here if you haven't seen it, and watching it for yourself, so that a lot of things I talk about here make sense. At the time I'm writing this script, 7 episodes of the first season have been released. Naturally, this video will contain spoilers for the series, so if you are interested and do want to watch it, please do and come back to this video later. I'll give you 10 seconds to leave the video before I start with the alt-hist scenario. Alright, those 10 seconds are up. If you're still here and haven't watched the series, then you only have yourself to blame for getting spoiled now. In the very first episode of Songs of War, the powerful Ardoni, Thalius Sendaris, and his friend, the scholar HAWKEN, study the walls of time, which tell the story of Ardonia, that's the world this series takes place in, and the Ardoni species. HAWKEN believes that the ancient Voltaris clan, the clan of Ardoni who abused the songs, the magic tools used by the Ardoni, those are, which had been exiled and later defeated in the conflict known as the Great War, were hiding out in Mount VELGRIN. So the two of them traveled to the mountain's peak. There they found Tigran Voltaris, accompanied by at least 7 other Voltaris, proving HAWKEN's suspicion right. Thalius fought Tigran for a while, until Thalius was eventually disarmed and lying on the ground. Tigran tried to fire a blast from his Aggressium song, intending to kill Thalius, but HAWKEN intervened with a shield, stopping the blast. Tigran immediately stabbed and killed HAWKEN after this, but Thalius managed to get back up and escape, though saddened by the death of his friend. But what if HAWKEN failed to block the blast and Thalius was killed, and what if HAWKEN managed to escape after that? How would this affect the series? Here's where I begin the alternate history scenario. HAWKEN sees the Aggressium blast fire from Tigran's sword, heading for Thalius. He stands frozen in place, horrified at what might happen to his friend. He's too scared to make a move. He finally snaps out of it and closes his eyes to focus. Picks up the shield Thalius found nearby, rushing to stop the blast, but the blast never hits his shield. He opens his eyes and sees Tigran standing ahead of him with a wide smile. He turns behind him and sees Thalius' motionless body just as his lights go out and his mobilium song appears on the ground. HAWKEN has failed and his friend is dead, killed by the blast. He's horrified and grief-stricken, but he knows he still has to act quickly. He can't let Thalius' possessions fall into Tigran's hands. He notices Tigran walking toward him, readying his sword. While all the strength he can muster, HAWKEN throws his shield at Tigran. Tigran easily slices it in half with his sword, but the momentary distraction is enough for HAWKEN to rush over to Thalius' body. He picks up the mobilium song and Thalius' sword and begins running. HAWKEN knows enough about the mountain to navigate back down. Once there, he finds the horses he and Thalius rode to the mountain and gets on his horse, having Timber, Thalius' horse, follow behind. HAWKEN travels to Sendaria, Thalius' home. He knows that he has to report this to Osivian Sendaris, an influential member of the Sendaris clan and a good friend of Thalius's. He finds Osivian in Sendaria. It's unknown if Osivian and HAWKEN had met before due to Thalius being their mutual friend, but if not, HAWKEN introduces himself. He asks Osivian to speak with him privately, to which he agrees. Once in the private location, HAWKEN explains everything to Osivian, and shows him Thalius' sword and his mobilium song, which he took after he died. Osivian is horrified and suspects that HAWKEN could have betrayed and killed Thalius himself, then lied, but HAWKEN assures him he's innocent and convinces him to send an expeditionary force to Mount VELGRIN to deal with Tigran. Osivian announces the events publicly, and gathers about 50 Sendaris warriors, including himself, to head to Mount VELGRIN, as 50 would be more than enough to deal with 7 Voltaris, even if one was a skilled fighter. And no, before you ask, Sen and Rhea would not be there. Osivian would never allow that. HAWKEN also joins them, feeling as if it would be wrong to stay behind and an injustice to Thalius' legacy. HAWKEN gives Osivian the mobilium song so he can use it if necessary, as well as Thalius' sword. Osivian, HAWKEN, and the Sendaris warriors arrive at Mount VELGRIN and proceed to go up the same way HAWKEN and Thalius did. They arrive at the peak, where they don't see any Voltaris. They do, however, find Thalius' body, and the Sendaris team is able to confirm he was killed by an Aggressium blast, saving HAWKEN from being a suspect, as humans can't wield songs. But before anything else can be done, the Voltaris emerge, far more than 7 of them. Naturally, more were likely hidden in the mountain. There's about enough to match the Sendaris numbers on the peak. Tigrin approaches Osivian and HAWKEN. Multiple Sindaris move to protect them, but Osivian waves them off. Tigrin makes a few remarks, and then prepares to fight. Osivian battles Tigrin for a short while. Now, I don't think Osivian could ever defeat Tigrin in a purely skill-based fight, given that Tigrin was able to defeat THALLEOUS in the actual series, and THALLEOUS was likely far more powerful than Osivian. There's not necessarily evidence of that, but it'd be logical, and I'll just assume it until an official source proves me wrong. In this scenario, Osivian would be helped by THALLEOUS' Mobilium song, as well, which he possesses at the moment, as well as THALLEOUS' sword. Given these factors, Osivian, helped by his nearby warriors, is able to hold his own against Tigrin for a while, clashing with the Fury as he fights the one who killed his friend. Meanwhile, the fight between the Sindaris and Voltaris here is even at the start, although the Voltaris know this place much better, making them shift the tides of the battle soon. At some point, even Osivian's determination isn't enough for him to beat Tigrin, who gets the better of him and shoves him into a wall, knocking THALLEOUS' sword out of his hands. Tigrin raises his sword to kill Osivian right then and there. All the Centaurists nearby are slain or too busy fighting to notice, and only HAWKEN realizes what's about to happen. HAWKEN, clenching his fist, remembers how he failed to save THALLEOUS. He couldn't fail to save Osivian as well. This time, he had no shield, nothing to protect himself. It is him or Osivian, and if THALLEOUS had taught him anything, it was to put others before himself. HAWKEN runs in front of Osivian just as the blade is coming down, and Tigrin's sword pierces through HAWKEN's heart, stopping just before it can touch Osivian. HAWKEN dies momentarily. Osivian, realizing what has happened, is horrified, but in a brutal way. This was exactly what he needed. As Tigrin is distracted by this I make mistakes. As Tigrin is distracted by this unexpected event, Osivian grabs THALLEOUS' sword and activates his Mobilium song, warps behind Tigrin, and before he can remove his sword from HAWKEN's chest to save himself, stabs Tigrin through the heart as well. In seconds, Tigrin falls to the ground, and his lights go out. The leader of the resurging Voltaris clan is dead. With the death of their leader, the remaining Voltaris are demoralized, and with Osivian being able to focus on all of them, the tides turn in favor of the Sindaris. Soon, the Voltaris numbers deplete dramatically, until they fall back and retreat from the mountain. The Sindaris have won control of the Voltaris' own mountain, and with great pride, though HAWKEN has done what he could not do before and has sacrificed himself to save Osivian, leaving most of the Sindaris of the mountain to keep it secure. Leaving most of the Sindaris on, not of the mountain, to keep it secure in case the Voltaris tried to reclaim it. Osivian departs for home with a few others, carrying the bodies of THALLEOUS and HAWKEN. Once they arrive in Sindaria, a funeral is held for both at once. Sen and Rhea also attend, because THALLEOUS was almost like their uncle, and the whole trauma manages to bring them closer to Osivian. Ultimately, the Voltaris are I make so many mistakes, just don't worry about it. Ultimately, the Voltaris are greatly weakened about this. Ultimately, the Voltaris are greatly weakened after this and don't have the strength to make a move until they can regather. Command of the clan would possibly transfer to someone like Zenaida Voltaris from the 6th episode. Without a strong resurgence for the Voltaris, a large part of the story would be gone from the series, as well as Sen's entire adventure as THALLEOUS wouldn't be there to bring him along. The Dragon Egg arc, the Necromancer arc, they would still be in the series, and would likely be more eventful than anything to do with the Ardoni from that moment forth. Well, that's it for today's scenario. Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Do you think the scenario was reasonable? Do you think things would play out differently than what I described? How do you think the events would have played out if HAWKEN had survived on Mount VELGRIN instead of THALLEOUS? You're more than welcome to say any of that in the comments. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll try to make another scenario soon. If you have any suggestions for other scenarios about Songs of War I could make, then, again, please comment them. That's all for today, and I'll see you later. Poseidon there. Over and out.